The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keefer and Kurre. It's where Kip Keefer and Tony Kurre talk about, nothing in particular, just whatever comes to mind. And I always preface this when I have a topic because Tony and I started off this, and you might have heard it a couple weeks ago, and if you did hear it, I apologize. But for those who are tuning in to us that don't know, we used to have this all figured out. We're going to talk about this or that. And we actually even kicked around a few different ideas and things. We just junked that a few months ago and said, you know what? Somebody throw out a topic and we'll talk about it. Because Tony got into the habit of just having us roll during our kind of casual times. And,
it's our best stuff. It's our best stuff. When we sit there and just shoot the shit, it's our best stuff. So I'm like, we should be rolling all the time. So yeah.
I remember you saying after you finished the shows, I wish I had it rolling the first part. The first part we talked about when we weren't recording was even better than what we talked about. So we kind of learned our lesson. All right, Tony, I need some help today from one of the most experienced, iconic broadcasters in this city's history, and certainly your broadcasting roots go back to when you were a mere child, basically, messing around at the radio station when you were in high school, and you've been in this for a long time. And I've been on the periphery of it in terms of I've always had shows on radio or TV for the entirety of my career. And it's one of the great blessings in my life that I got into an industry in the marketing area where I could justify always having my broadcast roots, because as a young man, I was destined to become the next great play-by-play man. I should have been Al Michaels or Jim Nance or, whoever you might want to mention. Brent Musburger, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I learned how to talk by listening to those guys. I was born in Washington, D.C., moved to Atlanta, never developed any kind of Southern accent because I patterned my speech after network, NFL, and college football announcers.
Yes.
And so the long and short of the story was I've been consumed with this industry my whole life, but I am talking a lot about, and I just did a need to know about being proud to be Americans and standing up for what America's all about. And the First Amendment is critically important to any foundation of what this country stands for. You have to be able to speak your mind, and you have to not be inhibited to speak your mind. And Tony, it bothers me, and I just want to get your knee-jerk reaction to this, because this is just a couple of people that have touched a nerve with me, and I know I should ignore them and I should be bigger than this, but they used a couple of words that really stung me. And I have been informed that my Saturday and Sunday sports shows, where I give a strong opinion every week on everything happening in college football and sports on the larger sense, that I have been, quote, insulting numerous people all year with my broadcast in the sports arena. So I need to hear from you, A, how I should just not even let that affect me, but B, do you find anything I do insulting?
I find everything you do insulting, and that's why I love having you on Tony Kurre Radio. Listen, I saw this like 3-4 years ago when I sat down, and what did I just say to you this morning? I said, we always have a nice little discussion before we start our show. Sometimes it's about our personal lives, sometimes it's about our professional, whatever. And I said, it's amazing that you and I have not crossed paths earlier in this. We're both in our 50s. We've both been doing radio for 40 years. And when you look at our backgrounds, they mirror each other in a lot of different ways. And I'm really surprised we haven't run into each other a couple times, some green rooms or maybe some backstages of some particular shows. And I said, it's just amazing. And so I feel you, but I also realize that, if the phone's not ringing in the GM's office, you ain't doing your job.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is go, look at, the Howard Stern movie and tell me how that turned out. Now, obviously it doesn't turn out that way for everybody. You don't get fired. The old saying is, if you don't get fired at least 3 times in radio, you're really not a radio person. I've only been fired once, so I guess I got 2 more times. I'd have to fire myself at this point since I'm self-employed, which I might do, by the way. So yeah, you got to push the buttons, and now we live in this vanilla, manila, don't piss anybody off, laid back type of sorts of. Whereas one voice can always be the loudest. You know as well as I do, phone calls are as important as you want to make them. Paul Feinbaum's entire career has run off of phone calls.
Absolutely.
He is an anomaly. He is the outside. He is the extreme. It just doesn't. Go find another radio show where they take phone calls as much as he does. It doesn't exist. It's the only one he's got. And he's been doing it for 35 years. It's taken 35 years to build what he's got, to know exactly what's going to be spewed out, who's going to have the take, and why he should put them on national radio show. And he's masterful at it. We had him on our show this time. He's the best at it, and no one will ever come close to that. And most people don't want to come close to that. Most people like to give out their opinion like you do. I'd say the most amazing thing about you is I've got, look at this, man. I mean, I've got pages and pages and pages of notes that I have spewed all over. I wish I could turn the camera around on my desk. I mean, it is an absolute mess. It looks like It's a Wonderful Life. It looks like George's desk, at the bank where the stuff is piled up high, and the only thing it's missing is a damn crow. I should have a crow in my studio somewhere, getting in through my papers. I have to have those things in order to put on a successful show. You don't. You can sit there. I can say immigration. Give me 30 minutes on immigration, and you can go 30 minutes on immigration. It's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. It really is. And I worked with a lot of people, and I worked with a lot of great people on radio. It's unlike anything I've ever heard where you can just go for 30 straight minutes. Now, is it the greatest radio I've ever heard? Sometimes. Is it the best radio I've ever heard? Most of the times. I mean, it's really good stuff. And so what I really like is the fact that you can get something instilled in your brain, and you can allow the sun to shine on in multiple different ways. And so that's how you grow. That's how you go. I know for a fact that you may say, this is where I want to end up, and this is where I'm starting, and you never even get close to over here.
Yeah.
But that's what makes the show so good. So by doing that, you piss people off. I've always said that, any promotion is good promotion. If people aren't calling in, I have a guy who used to call me every single day at 5 o'clock when I was doing classic rock radio. And he'd call me every day at 5 o'clock. 741 rock, 741 roll. Those were our lines. Thank goodness he never had the hotline number. And I'd pick up and I'd say, Classic Rock 99.5. Tony Kurre, you suck. Oh. You suck. You always suck. You've always sucked. You're always going to suck. That happened for 20 years. Every day at 5 o'clock, I would laugh at it. I would say, hey, that's great, man. Thanks for calling in. I'd hang up on the guy. I'd say, hey, listen, can we get a cup of coffee sometime? Would you like to meet me in my church so I could find out who you are? Hey, listen, this has been going on for 10 years. It's really funny. I started putting the guy on the air. I just put that on there.
Hilarious.
You'd hear the song end, Boston would end, More Than a Feeling, and you hear this guy going, Tony Kurre, you effing suck. You just suck. And then it would go right into Classic Rock 99.5, and it'd go right into another song. I was using it, but every time I played it, every time he called, every time I'd get anxious because it was coming up on 5 o'clock, it would just tear my heart out. It would tear my heart out. And people are like, dude, you're number one, not only in Birmingham, you're number one in the country. Everyone knows you.
Yeah.
Everyone thought I was going to be the next Howard Stern. They did. I was huge. I'd done the Billboard thing. I'd done everything. And that one phone call every day just tore me up. And I don't care if it was a Friday in 1988 or a Friday in 1998 or a Friday in 2008. The guy never missed a day. Never missed a day. We could have phone lines. Sometimes I would set up things, and this is my fault, but sometimes I would set up, hey, call me with your best ideas for this, blah, 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 just because we only had 2 lines. That way I could clog up the lines so he couldn't get through. And I would do it like 10 minutes till I go, okay, call me, who's best, Nick Saban or, Bear Bryant, whatever, just the most mundane, stupid stuff, just to get the phones flying hot, right? And he would always get through. I would go, okay, there's no possible way. It's 10 minutes till 5. The same lines have been ringing for 10 minutes, and I'd go to that line at 5 o'clock. Tony Kurre, you suck. You sucked at it.
It wasn't coming from the general manager's office, was it?
Yeah, I don't know how the hell he got through. He got through every single time. On my phone lines, like if we were giving away $50,000 and the lines were clogged up from 3 o'clock on, which they are.
God.
He was always on. He was always on. And I still remember it. I still think about it. And it still bothered me, man. And people are like, get over yourself, dude. You know what you're doing. You know what? But it hurt me. It hurt me. And it bothered me that this guy got to me so much. There's only one other individual that did that. And he did it on Twitter. The guy still doesn't have a follower. He has 0 followers and has just done everything he possibly can do to try to manage and destroy my life as a professional. And obviously the best way to do that was to get off terrestrial radio because there's no way they can find you when you do your kind of thing. But you're back in terrestrial radio now, so you're back in that realm. So you're back where you are prey. The vultures will come down and get you. All I can tell you is if you're not pissing people off, if you do a 4-hour show and the phone lines are dead, you're in trouble.
Well, let me give you the background of why I find this so ridiculous, because it turns out the more I read my criticism, which I put myself out there. I accept that there's going to be people to disagree with me, but it appears that this guy is really affected by the fact that I trash and call out and don't like the Big Ten. This is obviously somebody from Michigan who has somehow found his way down here. And Tony, I do 2 football shows on the weekend on Jocks 94.5, where you were a mainstay for so many years. I do those 2 shows, and we make no bones about it. This is an SEC football show. Yep. This is an SEC country. We are in Birmingham, Alabama.
The SEC office is here.
Yeah. So I've only responded once because I don't think he justifies a response. But I said, dude, I'm doing an SEC show in Birmingham, Alabama. Do I purposely trash and provoke opinion about the Big Ten? You bet your ass I do. That's part of the show. It's part of the shtick. Last year, a guy called and told Terry Quillian, my co-host, and I, you 2 are the biggest SEC homers of all time. Yes. And you know what she said?
What's that?
She said, well, thank you. You know what? I'm going to put that on my headstone. Here lies Terry Quillian, the biggest SEC homer that ever lived.
She took that as a compliment, I'm sure.
Tony, do these people not recognize that what we do on the air is yes, it's our opinion, yes, it's our passion, and we want to have it strong takes and I'll use the word and edge, because you don't want to just come on and be some milquetoast. It's not NPR. It's not everybody ties for first place. I'm just absolutely amazed that people do not have the depth of knowledge to realize that I don't have to be kind or considerate toward the Big Ten, which I literally don't like, but particularly if I'm serving in the capacity of a host on an SEC football show promoting that league and those schools and those players. And for this guy to be so, it's so insulting. Ward Manuel, who is the athletic director at Michigan, was the chairman of the college football committee. This guy said, well, you calling Ward Manuel stupid is absolutely irresponsible and terrible. Tony, in my adult life, I have never, ever personally, professionally, anywhere called any person stupid. I would never do it. Yep. It's just completely in violation to everything I stand for. Now, a deed, an act, a statement, they could be stupid. But I have never said, well, Ward Manuel, athletic director at Michigan, chairman of the college football committee, is stupid. I would never say that. And to be accused of that, it's so outrageous. And he went on to say, you're calling a man stupid who was an African-American, all-American football player at Michigan. I don't even know what color Ward Manuel is. I've got vision impairment. To be basically accused of racism or worse. Was he saying that because Ward
he's
Manuel
black,
is African-American,
he's off the table.
I cannot question him?
Well, that's ridiculous.
I'm basing it on his statements of, well, we really don't look at who teams are playing, strength of schedule. Well, Ward, what are you looking at? If you're playing all the Sisters of the Poor every game, I'm pointing out things that I find to be inconsistent, and I don't apologize for that. But it's just absolutely, just completely, just floors me that people don't have enough context to understand. I'm doing an SEC football show in the heart of the South. I'm not going to be praiseworthy of the Big Ten.
What Ward does need to do is schedule Alabama every single year, because he beats them twice every year they play.
No
So they're getting the upper call right there. They're getting the last laugh for sure. I saw a guy in my neighborhood. It's so funny. Just a couple of weeks ago, he had it was his bright as you could see, this dark blue with this yellow thing on the front of it, and it had to be a Michigan sweatshirt, and it said Michigan Engineering, and then it had a date or something underneath it. And I was like, wow. And I said, and it was right after, of course, the Bama loss. And I said, hey, go Wolverines, man. Congratulations. He goes, oh, no. He goes, I found this sweatshirt in the Goodwill. It was a nickel, so I bought it.
A nickel.
He goes, it fits, so I bought it. He goes, I'm an Alabama fan, but I thought it was hilarious. It was a nickel, 5 cents. Congratulations. No, yeah, listen, and what I think what they're feeling too is this. What's coming up next year, basketball season? We may have the first ever all SEC Sweet 16.
Final. I mean, and maybe even Final Four. Yeah.
Well, Final Fours. The Final Four goes without saying. Obviously, it'd be really difficult to have an all Sweet 16 SEC. But I mean, right now we've got 15 teams in the top 60. We got 4 in the top 6. The SEC, and now they go into conference play. This is March Madness, and it's happening in January. If you want to go play in the SEC, I know the Big East used to be like this several years ago. The ACC was like this, where night in and night out, and I love it because, I'm a Xavier Musketeer. Man, every single night it was Georgetown, it was Villanova, it was just one after another. At Butler, it was just, these teams, and now the SEC. And think about this, man. We may actually say one day that Auburn is a basketball school. You could almost make that argument now, that Auburn, and you should take it. You should ride it off into the sunset. You should take that. If you're just like, no, Auburn's always going to be a football school. I got news for you. You're having a lot more success in basketball than you ever had in football. You have a better shot at winning. And I can't believe I'm saying this. 10 years ago, you would say I'm crazy. Alabama and Auburn right now have a better chance at winning March Madness than they do a national title in college football.
Absolutely. There's no question about it.
I'm not saying Alabama's not a football school. I'm not saying they'll always be a football school. They will be. But I'm saying right now, Alabama and Auburn have better shots at winning a national title in basketball than they do in football. And I don't think I would have ever had a chance to say that in my entire life. That would have been one of those questions. That would have been one of those, will Tiger Woods ever win a major again? He could be 83 years old. And there's probably a line on that somewhere. So, if the Big Ten folks, the self-planners come down there, they can't get over it. They can't get over it. The thing is, though, does he keep calling you back? Does he keep calling you back? Does he keep?
Well, this guy doesn't even have the guts to call. This guy's all online.
Okay, well, so that's even better, because then you can tag him down. But what I'd say, and I'm a kill him with kindness guy, I love to see what people tick. And listen, when you've got one person, and you go ask Paul about this too, Paul wasn't always off the board either. People used to come after him all the time, and he used to play their phone calls. And those are the ones that actually build him up. They continued to compound him and pound him to the point where that thing turned into, it was like 2 tectonic plates hitting, and Paul turned out to be the mountain in the middle. And he's ridden that mountain all the way to the bank. So he's done really well. So let those callers, let those idiots, let those stupid callers call in with all the vitriol crap they want, and just use it to your benefit.
Well, I don't think our show would flourish here if I came on talking about what a good defensive line Northwestern has. Or boy, did you see those Iowa Hawkeyes the other day? They were fantastic. I just can't believe people don't have enough ability to understand the context of where we are and who we're talking to, and it's not to Big Ten fans. And I don't have to be fair. I can be biased. That's the beauty of it. I like the fact that, particularly in this environment on TKR and podcasting, it's more or less encouraged. But is there some unwritten rule I'm not aware of that I have to be fair and balanced when talking about football?
No, you can get after it and do whatever you want. It's your show, brother. You're the one that hits the on-off button. You're the one that's got the microphone. You're the one that's got the producer. You're the one that's got the callers and the listeners. And I would just say, as long as people keep calling you and ripping you, you're doing something right. I will say this
that's what I needed to hear.
And maybe what because you got to ride it while you got it, right? And we look at the SEC in baseball. We look at their basketball program, certainly in football. I think was it 6 of the last 10 national champions?
Yeah, 19 out of the last 26.
We've owned that mountain for a long period of time. And now you look and we got one SEC school, and it's a school that just came into our league last year. Or this year, depending on how you look at that, being the Texas Longhorns. A lot of people are saying, outside the worst team out of the Final Four. I think any team has a shot. And then
I don't think roster-wise they are. I think they got loads of talent.
Well, you'll learn more about that on the starting lineup because we're going to break that down on Saturday. But you look at the other three schools, Penn State, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, and what have we been saying for years? We thought Notre Dame should have been a Big Ten school 15, 20 years ago.
Of course.
If Notre Dame's going to get into because it's a fit, right? And so what they do, they end up playing an ACC schedule.
Yeah.
Go figure. So, I mean, you can make an argument that 3 of the Final 4 teams are actually Big Ten schools, or you can make any argument you want. But, yeah, until Michigan, and again, maybe he's about 2-3 years short because now that Harbaugh's gone, I don't think Michigan ever wins a title again.
Well, I'm sure I pissed off a Wake Forest fan or somebody this weekend when I pointed out the ACC, their bowls record is concluded now. The book is closed. 2 wins, 11 losses. Way to go, ACC.
Yeah, as long as Clemson and Florida State continue to play that type of football, we're going to be in fine shape when it comes to the ACC and winning national titles.
Yeah, and both those teams desperately want out of the league.
There's no doubt.
It's amazing. Let me since we're kind of on the football thing, I came across a stat that I want to run by you because you're not one that really pontificates much. I don't think you really haven't weighed in on your opinion and your assessment of Kalen DeBoer's first year at Alabama. But listen to this stat: Kalen DeBoer lost 4 games this year, 3 of them to teams that Alabama was a 15 or more point favorite. Nick Saban also in his career at Alabama lost 3 games where he was a 15-point or more favorite in 17 years.
Wow.
Ouch. Wow. What do you think about Kalen DeBoer, Tony?
That's an amazing thing. Listen, I what do they always say? The biggest shoes or the hardest shoes to fill are the ones of a champion.
Be the man to replace the man.
It's never the next guy. It's the guy after the next guy. I'm not saying Kalen DeBoer, listen, should he have not taken that job because that? Should he say, no, I'm not want to be that next guy? I don't want to. No, I mean, he had an opportunity to become a head coach at the University of Alabama. You take that opportunity and they'll work through it. The problem is, you used to always get 3 years. Because it took 3 years to get your guys in your building, right? After 3 years, if you won a national title your first 2 years, you said, well, you're doing it with that guy's guys. And we could go back to Coker. We can go to some of the guys in college football that won championships in their first 2 years. They were always using the previous guys. They just didn't know how to coach. They left the cupboard full. Well, guess what? Now with transfers, now with all the stuff with the NIL stuff, you don't get 3 years anymore. You don't. You get and the other thing is, Kip, you never started a freshman ever. You never started a freshman.
Never.
A freshman would never win a Heisman Trophy. Well, now it's happened 3 times. Now everything is on the table, everything is off the board, and it's all out there. And so you got to win, and you got to win right now. And Kalen DeBoer, a guy who lost or did not win double-digit games for the first time since 2007. You can go back and look at that 1 year. That's all I can do is I can compare every first year to the 2007 year when this team called La Monroe knocked over Nick Saban. That's the only time I can look at it and go, listen, he was given 1 year. And I remember, man, you remember this too. People were calling for Nick Saban's head after he lost to La Monroe. I have a friend of mine who got married. He was at Aldridge Gardens. I was playing music at his, and I was so pissed off. I said, I can't believe you're getting married during the Alabama game. He said, oh, they're playing La Monroe. No one cares about that game. So that's why I'm doing it. I'm playing on La Monroe Day. That way no one will miss the game. After the ceremony, I come up and said, by the way, Alabama lost to La Monroe today. He got divorced 3 months later. He said,
wow.
You know what? This marriage will never last. It's not going to last. If Alabama's going to lose to La Monroe, all my marriage. He was divorced 3 months later. So, so you can always look at that one day. You can always go back and look at Dan Marino's first year, look at Josh Allen's first year, look at Patrick Mahomes' first year, look at any batters, Pete Rose's first year. Always go their first year and go, look, it took some time to figure it out. The problem is Alabama had nothing changed. The only thing I would say, and we've been talking about this on the starting lineup, and we could go another hour on this, I don't see the leadership that I've seen in previous Alabama squads. There's always a leader, whether it's on the defensive side of the ball or the offensive side. Milrow's not a leader. They don't have leadership right now in Alabama's locker room, and I think that's the one thing that's missing right now. That's why they look so inconsistent.
Well, and on top of that, leadership starts at the top.
Yep.
For the head coach to refer to Jalen Milrow all year as J Mill, Tony, he's not his fraternity brother. He's the coach, and that guy's his player. Well, J Mill told me, and J Mill did this, and that's a bad sign. I love the urban legend. I'm glad you brought Louisiana Monroe up. I love the urban legend that still is around, that Louisiana Monroe came up to play that game in Tuscaloosa in 4 yellow school buses. I love
and walked away with an $850,000 check.
Exactly. I love that urban legend. But I also had a caller this week say, and I'm glad we're talking about, this is the kind of things we talk about on my shows. We look at things behind the numbers. We look at realities, and yes, we're biased toward the SEC, but I do want to point out to people that are trying to justify DeBoer's first year, Nick Saban inherited a team from Mike Shula that was 6-6 in 2006. Kalen DeBoer inherited the SEC champions and semifinalists in the national championship playoffs last year.
And his quarterback was back. Yep.
That's exactly right. So Tuscaloosa, do we have a problem? I don't know if we have a problem, but we have a concern. And boy, Kalen DeBoer is all eyes next year, because folks around here, and you talk about getting criticism, but Alabama fans are the ones lodging those facts. I'm not coming up with a lot of these. They're digging all that up to talk about how dissatisfied they are.
You know, the legend. Real quick, the legend said something about 4 or 5 weeks ago that I thought was really interesting. It was after the Vanderbilt game. Do you remember what he said on the starting lineup? He said that DeBoer, first of all, he called him Kevin. He called him Kevin all year long.
Yeah.
He said Kalen was overwhelmed. And I thought that was really interesting. You say what you want about the legend. He's a blowhard. He's a knucklehead. He's an idiot. We love him. We love having him on the starting lineup. But he is close to that organization, and he's got his finger on this. Why he's on Paul's show every day. But he said he's overwhelmed. And I thought that was really interesting, because that feels like where he was at. And maybe you are overwhelmed in your first year. Maybe, Nick Saban didn't go away. He's on every single day during college football. You can't get away from it. Have you ever dated somebody that was on television? Have you ever dated? So I used to have a girl that I brought down here with me, and she hated me so much because when we broke up, she couldn't get away from me. The day we broke up, I went up on the billboard, and of course, everyone in the country was talking about this knucklehead, this idiot that was sitting on this billboard till Alabama won a football game. She goes, she'll call me. She goes, I hate you so much because I can't get away from you. Every time I turn the TV on, you're on. Every time I turn the radio on, you're on. Well, that goes for Nick Saban, man. During the football season, Nick Saban's always on. The guy you took his job and ended up losing 4 games to, he's everywhere. You just want to get away from his shadow and start your own thing. He's got 1 year to do it. You used to win double-digit games. You were safe forever. Now that we're adding all these games, double-digit games aren't enough. You win 10 games in a row. We used to go, he's won double-digit games in 13 his first 14 seasons. It doesn't matter, because you turn into the new 2024 Tommy Tuberville. He was good for 8 or 9 wins every single year. Add 3 more games. He's Tommy Tuberville. He's good for a 10-win season. If you're Northwestern, if you're Wake Forest, if you're Rutgers, 10 wins.
If you're winning 9 games,
yeah, you're getting yourself a raise. But if you're at Alabama, and I'll say it too, at Auburn, and you're not winning 11, 12, and now 13 games a year, you ain't in. And I'm telling you something else that really is playing hard on the Alabama fan base. First year where the top 12 teams got in. Alabama got in every year. There was 4. It felt like it. I know they missed a couple times.
I think only one time they missed. Yep.
Every time there was 4 teams they got in. Now we allowed 3 times that number, and Bama couldn't get their foot in the door.
Yep, that's for sure. Well, I appreciate the therapy, Dr. Curry.
My friend, I'm always here for you.
I needed to hear it. Keep
hey, if he starts calling you and saying, Kip Keefer, you suck. You haven't suck. Make sure you say the phone call, because it could be the same dude that was on me for 20 years from 1988 to 2008. I'm just telling you, man, this guy, and I still remember the guy. I wonder where he's at. He still haunts me. He still haunts me.
Unbelievable. So anyway, wherever you are, Michigan fan, I'm sorry that you're insulted, and the countless people that surround you are insulted. I assume it's your dog and your hamster and your goldfish. I'm really so sorry that Go Blue is foreign to my vernacular, because I'm an SEC guy. I'll always be an SEC guy. My show's about the SEC. I don't give a flip about the Big Ten, and I absolutely relish in being able to point out the insufficiencies and ridiculous contradictions that league stands for. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry to insult you.
I love it. This is Keefer and Kurre.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.